the state called Devin Basketball this game.
Very well. You may.
May I proceed?
You may.
Please state your name and spell your last for the court.
My name is Devin Baskerville, Baskerville.
How old are you?
I'm 22.
Why are you here today?
To testify about what happened to my mother on July 2nd.
What specifically are you referring to?
Well, on July 2nd, my mother and I were lured into an elevator, and during the incident, my mother was killed.
Was this the first time you came into contact with Mr. Fun?
Actually, no, it wasn't. On May 11th, my mother and I were walking to the farmer's market, and we saw this big sign for a sale. So my mother and I went down this alleyway to check it out.
What happened next?
Well, as we were walking down this alleyway, all of a sudden these people jumped out at us. They were dressed in raggy clothes and had pasty skin, and they started chasing my mother and I. I thought they were zombies or something.
What did you do?
Well, I had assumed that they were trying to mug us or hurt my mother and I in some way, so I immediately reached for her hand and we started running back towards the street to escape from them.
What happened?
Well, unfortunately, as I was trying to run away from these zombies, I slipped on the curb and severely shattered my ankle.
Were you able to escape from this scene?
Yes, eventually an ambulance arrived and took me away, me for my ankle because it had been broken, and my mother came with me because she couldn't quite comprehend what had just happened in the alleyway.
Were these people that looked like zombies actually trying to mug you?
No, I learned it was just a prank put on by Alan Funt.
How did you know it was a prank?
Well, as I was laying there in the street, wincing in pain because of my ankle, Alan Funt came out and yelled, "Cut!" And then I heard all this giggling around me.
Were you able to consult with anyone about your broken ankle?
Yes. My mother and I both agreed that Mr. Funt should pay for our medical expenses, and our lawyer advised that we discuss it with Mr. Funt before we bring the matter to court.
Did you schedule an appointment to meet with Mr. Fun?
Yes, after several weeks of trying to get a hold of Mr. Funt or his assistant, we finally had received an invitation via email to come to his office building on July 2nd.
Did you go to his office building on July 2nd?
Yes, both my mother and I did.
When you entered his office building, what did you find?
Well, we had to get up to the 3rd floor because that's where his office was located, but at the time I did still have the boot on my ankle, so taking the stairs would be too much of a hassle. So my mother and I went into the lobby to find an elevator to use. The email that he had invited us with even pointed out that there would be elevators for me.
When you entered his lobby, was there an elevator to use?
Yes, actually there were 2, but one of them had an out of order sign on it, so my mother and I went into the one off to the side.
When you entered that elevator, did it look normal?
At the time, it did seem normal. I had assumed it was a freight elevator, and I'd never been in one before, so the way it looked, I assumed that's how it should.
When you pressed the button to go up, did the elevator appear to be moving?
Yes, it started vibrating as if we were going up to the 3rd floor.
What happened inside the elevator?
Well, that's when things started to get a little weird. All of a sudden, the vibrating as if we were going up started to turn into jolts and really violent shaking. And then all of a sudden the lights started to flicker on us until they completely shut off.
And then what happened?
Well, that's when, in complete darkness, I felt this whoosh of air behind me. And all of a sudden the lights came back on and there was this ghost.
What did you do?
Well, I immediately went to protect my mother. I didn't know what this thing was, or if it was going to hurt us, or what it was going to do.
What was your mother's reaction?
I looked over, and she just clutched her chest and gasped for air, and then she just crumpled.
Did you determine if this was a real elevator?
Yes, it was just a fake elevator that Mr. Front had lured us into.
Were you able to escape from this fake elevator?
Eventually, the doors had opened into the same lobby where we had started, and I immediately started calling for help.
Did help arrive?
Yes, the EMTs arrived and took me to be treated for shock, and then went to take care of my mother.
Miss Baskerville, what was your mother's condition?
She was just laying there. She wasn't breathing, she wasn't moving, she was just lifeless, and I knew there was nothing I could do to help her.
Did Mr. Funt try to help?
No, I remember as I was being walked out that he was just standing there in the corner on his cell phone, as if he didn't care what had just happened to my mother.
Did you find his reaction or behavior unusual based upon your prior dealings with him?
Not at all. He didn't even seem to care when I had hurt my ankle, and he didn't seem to care now.
Could the events of July 2nd been avoided?
Yes. If he hadn't put us into the first prank, then he wouldn't have caused me a serious injury. And then if he hadn't invited us, luring us to his office on July 2nd, then maybe my mother would still be with me today.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Very good.